Hey everybody, it's Aima Kabani.
And Hussein Kabani, your favorite broker. And you guys may know that we actually took a trip into the US twice over the past few months, and we're just kind of scoping things out over there. And we're just gonna kind of talk to you about what we did, why we did it, and just certain things around.
Yeah, like our opinion on the trips and what we're thinking and what we possibly might do with it.
Maybe, yeah. You know, like one of the things that's been happening recently is that, you know, we get involved with conversations with lots of different type of people, and the conversation is always kind of like leads into like, hey, where do you think we're going as a country? And I don't want to try to make it too political, but like, where do you think we're going as a country? How is the rest of the world doing? And maybe even about different opportunities. So we're basically talking politics, we're talking about, you know, opportunities, and which basically leads us to kind of say that, hey, is everything here, or are we limiting ourselves by just focusing in on
I feel
what's
like
here?
Even as like, because we came here, like I came here in 2004. So the idea was like Canada was supposed to be home, right? It was like the big Canadian dream that you were going to come here and our parents, you know, sacrificed X, Y, and Z to settle here. And then this was going to be our life. But now that we have already set that up, now we start to kind of wonder, is this it? Is that this was supposed to be your one last stop? Or was there more? Was the point to come here and have more choices to do more and maybe do better?
Yeah, and you know what? I think to a certain point, that's probably what it was supposed to be, based on the picture that was painted at that time. But a lot of things changed in like 20 years, right? So I guess the way that things have been going is led us to kind of question that, hey, is there more out there?
Yeah, exactly.
And I would say like one of the things that's really made me question a lot of, question this is like, you know, as we see real estate kind of get more and more expensive, like I remember in like 2010, I bought that first Mattamy place, and that was, you know, a detached single car garage home, like 2,200 square feet. That was $422,000. Well, that same house right now is like $1.1 million, right? Or more. And when we're looking at even getting into like the townhouse market in Pickering, you're looking at like, you know, minimum, like $850,000, $900,000. And when we do the math backwards, it's just like, really, when someone is starting off, the affordability is not there.
Yeah, actually not even just homes, right? Because now more of our conversations are based around condos too, just because of the people that we're having conversations with, that no one's even thinking about buying homes. Like forget townhouses or semi-detached. We're talking about condos, and they're like, you know, 600, 700 square feet, and they're about 600, 700 grand. So I feel like the options are becoming limited, and that's part of why the conversation sort of expanded to like, what can we afford here?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess leading to exploring other areas was real estate.
Yes.
The other one started for me to become about healthcare, like hitting 40 years old, and they weren't lying. Everything is like a switch. So be ready, Chris. Everything is like a switch, right? It's like now all of a sudden I got this pain, I got this, my eyes are not so great. And when I had to get that thyroid specialist appointment, right? Like we're waiting here for like, I don't know,
6 months?
6 months to see a thyroid specialist. And I'm one of those people that is just antsy, right? I want to get it over with. I'm calling Buffalo and they're like, yo, can you be here in 45 minutes? And it's like, what are we doing wrong here? You know what I mean? So like even the picture of having free healthcare here, even when I explain what we get here to people in the US, because that was one of the conversations that came up when we were traveling there, it doesn't seem that pretty.
No, it's not.
So real estate, overall healthcare, lifestyle, opportunities that are available. And, you know, I don't want to get into it, but like you can argue politics as well, right? They have a different way of operating over there.
Yeah, and let's not forget weather. Like I'm sure you can see behind us right now, it's end of Feb and it's cold.
It's March 19th.
Sorry, it's we meant to say end of March.
Yeah.
And it's cold and there's snow. And you mentioned the age thing. Like I'm not there yet, but I already start to feel it in my bones. Every time I step out, I'm in pain. So
I have to say, it's a bit depressing, right? Like we've been under overcast for, I don't know,
long time.
6 months, I want to say. Like it's kind of depressing out there.
Yeah, and it's not even just the cold. Like we were looking at, I forget what the number is now, but even like the amount of sunlight we get, it's
dramatically
next
reduced.
to nothing. So
like I think even other provinces like Alberta compared to Ontario, at least it's cold over there, but they get a lot of sunlight and whatever else like
that.
So like because of all of these
multiple reasons,
we started to kind of look outside and say, hey, what are our opportunities? And the cool thing is that I know a lot of interesting people that have actually, moved out of the country or are planning on moving out of the country or have discussions about moving out of the country. So I get privy to these conversations and I get to learn from them of what they've done, right? Like a good friend of mine has moved to Florida and I'm learning from him about what's going on over there. And we actually went to Florida to kind of check it out to see, hey, how would this work for us if we wanted to do something like this? I have another buddy that's moved to Costa Rica. And so we're kind of learning from his experience about what he did and why he did it as well. So that, and what's happening is that we're having that conversation now with our friends over here as well. So we could do all of the research that we wanted to do online and leverage ChatGPT and all that other stuff. And, you have to kind of get boots on ground to actually figure out what's going on and if it's comfortable for you. Because when we started looking into Florida, we were like, yeah, hey, like this seems viable and whatnot. But when we got there for our own personal reasons, probably the area of Florida we were in, it just probably wouldn't have worked for us because we want to continue to work. I love my business. I want to continue to build my business. So maybe that area wouldn't have worked so much for us where it would work for other people. But that's why it's important to kind of get boots on the ground.
For sure. That's how we sometimes say about houses as well, right? It's you're kind of basing a lot of your decisions on a feeling. So I think the point of even going in person to check out the places that we were looking online was just to see what kind of like vibe you get. And it's important. You don't, I don't think anyone realizes it, but it's really important to get the right feel. Whether you're buying a house or, looking to relocate.
100%. So that basically kind of, after Florida, kind of led me on to ChatGPT of like basically asking it questions. And I'll be brutally honest, like I type in stuff like, hey, I'm a brown guy, an Indian guy, like I'm a realtor in Pickering and, I'm considering moving out of Canada. Like, what are my options? And it knows that I want to still work in real estate and my background a little bit more now. So it basically suggests areas like, Dubai and like US and a couple of other spots. And obviously I was interested in US, so we zoned in on that. And one of the areas that came up was Texas. So I really went down a rabbit hole about Texas for like 3 months, like nonstop. Like every single thing on my feed was about Texas.
And I remember like even going to bed, I would turn around and Hussein's watching something about Texas. I'd get up and I'm listening to something about Texas. So it was just like Texas for a very long time.
You know what? Like, and it's interesting to me is because like, when we're looking online, like you could see the house prices, like everyone's kind of scrolled and seen these things and you see these like crazy houses homes, you can get over there and they're like $500,000 and it's like, dude, how do you even build this thing for $500,000, right? And then you get to learn like, hey, maybe it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors or whatever else, but how much of it is smoke and mirrors and how much of it is real? And you see all these new developments coming up, but like it's hard to kind of gauge what's going on and what the demographic looks like and what the lifestyle is over there.
For sure, I think social media just generally like paints a greener picture anyway. So it was good to kind of go and check it out in person as well.
Yeah, so we did, right? After like 3 months or so of going down the rabbit hole, we went to Texas to kind of check it out for ourselves to see what was going on. I wanted to arrange a few meetings with like realtors out that way, broker managers at offices, and meet the salespeople at the model homes and go through the model homes. And we wanted to go to the Walmarts and the grocery stores.
Just things that you do on a day-to-day basis. I think when you're talking about moving, it's such a big decision and it's not just about, of course, we're not talking about retiring. We're still talking about working. So there's work. There's obviously what house you're going to live in. There's going to be the community aspect. There's going to be the day-to-day stuff like food, basically everything, because you're about to, it's a big change and you want to make sure everything feels right.
So I guess what I can say is that, unlike for us anyways, unlike Florida, Texas was more of a fruitful trip for us.
Yes, it was. I'm convinced.
If Aima didn't have to come back, she wouldn't have came back.
I probably wouldn't have come back.
And I think the reason that Texas kind of checked off the boxes for us is this, like, at the end of the day, I'm a brown guy, as you guys can see, and I feel a little bit more comfortable when there is a diverse crowd. And we saw that over there. There was a lot of diversity over there.
And I liked it. I liked seeing the fact that someone described it perfectly, actually. It was like 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. Like it really felt like what you thought Canada would be like as well, right? Like the whole diversity. Yes, it was a really good mix, and it was just nice to see all different types of families, communities, singles, people with young kids, people with older kids, and just all the demographics in like one place. So it was kind of refreshing, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
So like, I mean, we really liked the mix that we saw over there. when we went through the model homes over there, because we had a bunch of builders. I think I had like 13 or
A lot
14
of
builders
builders,
that I
yeah.
wanted to go to.
Yeah.
A lot of cool sites, right?
Yes.
Like there was that, what was that, Winsong Ranch?
Winsong Estate, Ranch.
Yeah, Winsong Ranch, which basically has like a 5-acre man-made lagoon.
Yes.
And it looks incredible online and the community around it and whatnot.
That's one of the things. So when I say they, I mean the Texas people.
The developers.
The developers, the people of Texas. When they talk about community plans, it was just really refreshing to see that they actually mean community. Like it wasn't just about the house. It was about the streets. It was about the fitness center, the amenities. It was about lifestyle. Like there was most of the communities there had a restaurant, that was only for the residents. Yeah, there is the lagoon that you mentioned was really cool. Like the developer went and got inspired somewhere in Europe, and he came back and he got inspired and he came back and he basically a man-made lagoon, which is like white sand and it's like blue turquoise water. You literally feel like you're at the beach, and there's enough space there to do like people could use their canoes and
5 acres, and it's 8 feet deep.
8 feet deep. So it was just so nice, and there were so many like walking trails, there were biking trails, and I remember one community had like a master plan to build like 13 schools around that area. So it was just really nice to see that when you're talking about a community and when you're talking about development, it doesn't only include houses, it was everything else.
Yeah.
Like there was one community where people actually bought golf carts because they would just use the golf cart to go to Home Depot or their local store or to their neighbor's house or to these amenity centers. So that was really refreshing.
Yeah, it was nice. Like you're saying, like, see here we talk about master plan communities that developers come up with, and you're supposed to have all these things around it. Like honestly, like I've been watching the real estate market and participating in it for 20 years, and all this master plan community stuff that they talk about, I've never actually seen it come true. But in Texas, it's like almost all the infrastructure is in place even before the houses get there.
Exactly.
And you have a master plan community.
You mentioned that. I remember a couple of people there told us that even if your house is not ready, they would give you access to the gym and all the amenities that are there so that you could start using it before you're even moved in, which tells me that you're catering towards the lifestyle aspect of it, right?
And that was a big push there too. Like a lot of these communities over there, they are focused on it. Like you said, like that Winsong Ranch, that place, like in front of that lagoon, every morning they have yoga classes.
Exactly,
there's a lot of these programs that they have built in over there.
Yeah.
So that was a very cool aspect, right?
Sure.
Of the community.
To put it into context, like we talk about it, and not to talk, I'm not trying to talk bad about what's happening here, but a gym membership is like $120 for one person. Over there, the HO fees, let's just even say on a higher level, like what is it, $180, $200 for a family, but your whole family has access to all of these things, which doesn't happen often, right?
I don't know what gym you went to. We went for Fit for Less or whatever it was. That was like $17.
People out there that are using Good Life or all the
Lifetime.
Okay. They know what I'm talking about.
Sure. But yeah, so like the housing and the community part was really
like a
cool.
Big check.
Yeah, exactly. It had a big check mark. And about the housing, like whatever we saw online wasn't necessarily true. Like we saw these houses advertised for like $500,000. Realtors out there are like posting all these things. But when you get there, it's like, yes, you can have this exact same house for $500,000, but it doesn't have the $250,000 of upgrades.
Yes, yeah. So be careful, because we were getting like everybody else. It was very attractive to see how beautiful and big and all these crazy upgrades that were in a home. But it's not necessarily exactly again. In comparison, it's still cheaper in that sense. Like you could still get the better finishes and the better upgrades for less than what you would get here, but it's still not.
It's not what they're advertising, I guess, is what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, like overall, so the housing was a check mark. It makes sense. The other cool thing that we found about being over there, I think, is that no one has to explain to you that place is going through an economic boom. Yeah. Like you could drive up and down that highway and you see nonstop construction. And I don't mean of just rooftop in houses. Like I'm saying, like there's office buildings, there's commercial plants. There's a lot of things that are actually happening there. Like the PGA, like PGA basically shut down their world head offices in Florida and moved to Frisco, Texas. Yeah. But a very cool thing that they did at the same time is that they built like 3 golf courses, I think. In the middle of all of that, they took 2 acres out of that and they actually did a free putting green that you could basically, the public can walk in with their putter, their ball, and they have 2 acres of practicing putting on a PGA green for free.
Yeah.
So like, that was a big thing. Universal Studios, Kids is going to be going into there as well.
Yeah.
Toyota headquarters is there.
Yeah.
What is that chip company? I keep forgetting. Frito-Lay?
I forget.
Anyways, so they have some like massive businesses that are actually moving into Texas.
Yeah.
It was so much like one of the downsides, because we talked about the properties and whatnot and how this kind of blends into there a little bit, is that the property tax over there, we found it to be around like 1.9% of purchase price. So it is high. So if you're all complaining about Durham property tax, imagine you're in Texas. Like that's not going to be pretty. So like 1.9, but Texas has such a surplus that they actually knocked it down to like 1.6. So they actually gave money back because they're doing so well.
Yeah, exactly.
And that also reminds me of a couple of other things. Is like, we were predominantly in Dallas, and we went Dallas downtown, and we found the connectivity in downtown was so cool.
Yeah.
Like there was this one park that basically the highway went underneath of it, and I think there were like 3 or 4 lanes across on each side.
Correct.
And then on top of it was a park, like in the middle of downtown, and we were there Sunday afternoon.
I was really impressed. Like I didn't kind of picture downtown to be so catered towards families. So when we went there, like you kind of explained, the whole park had like activities. There was like foosball table, there were like the beanbag tosses, and there were 3 splash pads within that same park, and they had, a line of food trucks going.
They had also those big building blocks. I mean, like these things, there was ample of them. Like if you wanted to do a beanbag toss, there would be an available station.
There would have been enough, like Connect 4, I guess. It was just very nice to see this whole community together in a park, and they're not just sitting around and talking or on their phones. There was enough activities for people to do. And I joked around, I said, I've never seen like so many kids play with other people's, like strangers' kids. Like I haven't seen that in the last 10 years. And it was just nice to see that everyone's just kind of in the same spot, playing together, grabbing food from the food truck, going around walking, and kids are just kind of being kids. And I haven't seen that.
Yeah. So that was a good part. And even in that downtown, it's like you could have went like 10 minutes across the other way and you would have been in more of an entertainment area.
For sure.
But there was a lot of free activities. We went to, like, I forgot, what was that one spot, that innovation center?
Yeah.
Some big brand, I forgot.
Yeah. But it's like an open marketplace kind of thing with restaurants, and they had a community, like they would have the movie set up there. So they were advertising that, hey, the next date is going to be like March 6th and we're going to be playing this movie. And, it was just very like community oriented.
Yeah, like I guess that's the whole point. It was like really community oriented. There was a lot of free things to actually do over there. There was a lot of entertainment.
We went, actually, I don't know if it was that same night or the next night, we decided we were going to go on a walking trail, and then we were kind of like, oh, it's 9 p.m. Maybe it's a little bit too late, but whatever, let's go try it out. And to our surprise, at 9 p.m., that walking trail was filled with people, with their dogs, with their kids.
People jogging, biking. It was an 8-mile trail, and it's called Katy Trail.
Katy Trail. And funny enough, like as you're walking, you actually have options to stop and sit and eat at restaurants.
Nice looking restaurants too.
So it was just okay. Like I wasn't expecting a trail to turn out to be so entertaining, and seeing like hundreds of people there, and having the option to kind of sit and have a drink and have some apps. It was really nice.
Yeah. So overall, like we found, like obviously housing was good. Looks like there's a good economic boom that's happening over there. Overall, for lifestyle and doing activities and things like that was good.
Yeah.
One of the downsides is that everyone drives like a maniac over there. Like you're doing like 80 miles an hour on the highway, like you better move over because you're going slow. Every car has a ding, bumper hanging off. Like it's bad news.
A lot of damaged cars. Hussein, you had no problem fitting in though?
Because it took me 2 days, and then I was driving more aggressive than they were, but it took a little bit of an adjustment on figuring that out.
For sure.
But other than that, I think everything was really nice. And I think, even talking about real estate, like there was a place that we were in, like area called McKinney. And we went into like 2 of the model homes over there. There was a 2,600 square foot model home over there. And everything that was in there was kind of included. And it was done up really nicely. And that was like $580,000 US. And then there was another house that was like, 35 or 3,600 square feet. And that was like 740 or something like that, like 750.
Very attractive price.
There's another one that we also saw that was sitting on 2 acres. It was a bungalow, 3,600 square feet bungalow. And that was like 1,040,000 US.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was their base model. And that was the
that
first.
That came with all
yes.
the upgrades. At base.
At base,
yeah.
we were surprised because all the other homes that we were seeing, obviously they were telling us it's upgraded and whatnot, but that was the only home that we saw that we said, this is the base model, except even the base was really nice. So you kind of got to see, hey, if you paid that much, this is exactly what you were going to get. And it was beautiful.
Really nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of that stuff, everything was good.
I think the one thing I will add is restaurants.
True. Like you could literally go out, I don't know, I'm going to exaggerate, but your whole life, 3 meals a day outside, and I don't think you could repeat a restaurant.
I don't think you'd run out. Like we were talking to a few people, some of the locals there, and they said, yeah, like even between their friends, they sometimes come across the name of the restaurant. Someone says they've been eating there every Sunday, and the other person hasn't even heard about it. So the amount of options there were, I was honestly quite impressed. And there's one place that I think I fell in love with. It's Ricky's Hot Chicken. So if you
we
know,
try to
you
look
know.
for it here. There's nowhere close to it.
It was so good
Texas.
that like we ate it twice, and I told Hussein that if someone told me that I was going to pass tomorrow and I got to have my last meal, I would go to Dallas and I would eat the chicken sandwich from Ricky's Hot Chicken.
Yeah, that was a really good one. So I think all of those things encouraged us to kind of look into it a little bit further. Yeah. Even like was another encouraging part of where there was a townhouse that was for sale, brand new townhouse. Yeah. They were in like the high 300s, low 400s. Yeah. And you could basically get like $3,000 a month US in rent for that. That was an encouraging kind of thing about the US is like, you could buy this townhouse, you can invest money into it. And what would happen is that day one, when you get a tenant in there, you're positive cash flow. Yeah. You're not negative. Like a bunch of our properties here, we're like feeding them right now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Over there, you're still positive. And that also made us think is like, there is still a future over there. Like over here right now, sure, you can go somewhere further away and still buy a property, no problem. But like you're still kind of in the city over there, you know what I mean? Yes. And like where's the opportunities over here within the city that a young couple can start to afford? It becomes very, very hard.
Very difficult. I think some of the other aspects that we didn't really get to explore too much, just kind of heard about were schools. Like a lot of people were saying that the schools there have great ratings, and obviously we're not there yet, so we didn't really dig too much into that. But schools,
they're really happy with the schools.
Yeah, people were really happy, and it was in every community because we obviously drove quite a bit and we explored quite a few different communities, and that was one constant as well, which is schools.
The other thing was medical centers. Like there was, because it's private, we saw ERs everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
So it's like, we even asked somebody, right? Because I got into a conversation with somebody, they're like, oh, you're the first Canadian I ran into that said, hey, like US might be a good option or whatever, but you have free healthcare. So we actually compared the points based on our taxes over here versus there, and then layering in like medical coverage. And, I asked them a question. I basically said like, hey, if you get sick or you need to see a doctor and an ER over here, how long is it going to take? He's like, not more than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, over there, it's going to take at least like 5 or 6 hours for you to see anybody. You know what I mean? So that's a big difference. Even we talked to Tracy, right? And it's like the level of care that's available in the US and we're just talking based on what conversations we've
conversations
had.
And our
experience. But like the care over there is like so much more superior than over here because it's a competitive environment, right? Over here, it's all sponsored and everything else. Like it's public and whatever. So what's the doctor's incentive? You know what I mean? To go to Europe or wherever it is and learn about the newest technology of what's happening in medical equipment and pay for that to come over here. Because when you build OHIP, they're going to still give you the same $55 or whatever it is. Correct. You know what I mean? Yep. You have no incentive to improve. Yep. At least in the US, you have some incentive that, hey, you know what, if I innovate my business, if I come up with this, next process or procedure or check or whatever, I could probably get more clients.
Something out of it.
It's competitive.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Yeah, and not to get too off base, but we've spoken to a few doctors that are here, at different levels, and they explain kind of the kind of workload they're under, and they're comparing what it would be like practicing in the US versus Canada, and it does sound more attractive to be on the US side there too. And there was one hospital, I forget, it had a funny name about eating children, but basically it was a hospital catered to children, like I guess equivalent to sick kids here. And the hospital itself was so beautiful. I was joking around saying, I'd want to get sick just to go in there and explore how beautiful this building is and what kind of service you would get inside there. But overall, I felt like again,
vibes.
like, and I told Hussein that I think if we were, 5 or 10 years later in our situation where we had kids and we worried about school and healthcare and what kind of, entertainment our kids would have, I think the decision to possibly relocate to Texas would be a lot
Faster,
easier and faster.
Yeah.
So I felt like Dallas was just catering more towards a good lifestyle, especially for families.
Yeah. One other thing I will kind of touch on, because we're talking about the U.S. and it really comes up, is guns.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So like the U.S. apparently everybody has a gun, and
Yeah.
I think like Texas has open permit like to carry
Yes.
and
Yeah.
whatever else like
You could
that.
almost assume that everyone there has a gun.
I mean, did you feel unsafe at all?
I did not. I honestly did not. I thought I had this notion that, I would feel a little bit unsafe, or that, how we interact with strangers might be a little bit off. But I not once, like every interaction we had with any stranger, not once
Super
did I feel
friendly.
they were super friendly. We kind of got used to saying y'all this and y'all that. And even, I'm talking even small interactions, like checking out at a grocery store or at a Winners. I
was all
forget.
pleasant.
Every single person there was pleasant. Like on our drive, there was one point where we just had to stop at it was like a little local restaurant by the gas station.
It was in the middle of Dallas and Houston, and it was like in a
like a no man's land kind of.
It's sketchy to go inside. We thought it was going to be pretty sketchy to go inside.
But we pulled over, we went and we got our avocado and toast and coffee, and
the gentleman Les, he was like the owner. He was at the back. He actually came out, looked at us, and he knew that we felt awkward about being there. So he's kind of rhyming off what's on the menu, and he's like, "Y'all gonna be staying here to eat your breakfast?" Or like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, I'm gonna push these tables in for y'all." All right, cool.
It was just very nice. Like I said, like to say the same thing again, I never once felt unsafe. I felt everyone was very kind, and I think to your point, they do recognize as well that you're not from there. And I feel like instead of backing off, they somehow get 10 times nicer to make you feel a little bit more comfortable. That was my experience.
Yeah, no, I
think you'd
felt
agree.
the same. Yeah. But again, about the guns. So like, people do carry guns there. But let me just position this in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Like the flip side of here is that if you're getting robbed over here with a gunpoint, like that person with the gun knows like 99.9% chances you don't have a gun.
Actually, some of your friend, a really good friend of ours said, well, over here, only the bad guys have guns. So,
yeah, exactly. Over here, the bad guys have guns.
Yeah, and which is very true. Like we joked around about this a few days ago. Like we all know how many cars are being stolen off of people's driveway, and the advice was
and
leave
the break-ins.
and the break-ins, and the advice was to leave your car keys or your fob by the door.
Yeah.
Make it easier for the people trying to.
So they don't hurt you.
So they
Let
don't
them
hurt
take your
you.
car.
And that to me is ridiculous. Like I hate to say it, but on the flip side, I'd rather be the person that has something to protect myself and my family with, knowing that if someone came to our door, it would be an equal fight.
Yep.
As opposed to saying, hey, take everything we have, just don't hurt us. I just think it's, I don't know, it's not a good standard to set.
You know what? I think that there has to be a balance of it.
Sure,
and I'm
yeah.
not saying like either one is good or bad or whatever, but like I'm not saying it's the worst because you're allowed to have a gun over there.
And I know it's very controversial, and I'm sure that there will be some
There's going to be some hate here for
this.
sure.
But again, like you have to evaluate both sides, and I know what kind of harm it causes, but I'm also, I guess we're just talking about seeing, hey, what is the flip side to all
I
this?
guess the main thing I want to say is from my perspective, I didn't feel scared that people are able to carry guns. We saw people carrying guns.
Yes.
And I didn't feel unsafe about it at all. It was actually good. And just I'll pitch another example is like if you're getting robbed on the street at gunpoint, like likely no one's going to do anything over here. At least over there, other people may have a gun and they may feel comfortable stepping in or whatever else like
Absolutely,
that.
yeah.
Like I think it could work in both ways.
I think in a way you can feel more protected in that sense as well.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's a tricky conversation to navigate about guns, and it ultimately depends on how you feel about it and what your bases are on it. But in general, I think that Texas was really exactly what we were kind of expecting. I think it was a little bit better than what we expected.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
So I feel like it exceeded my expectations.
But
in
what ways? Like, what do you think was so good about Texas?
So I think a little bit because we had been to Florida prior to, I feel like that was kind of influencing my decision. So what was the difference? Like with Florida, great, the weather was perfect.
Yeah, weather was really nice in Florida.
And personally, I felt that Florida was a little bit, I don't want to say dirty, because then it just makes it seem like Florida is dirty. But
it's not.
It wasn't dirty, but when you compare it to Texas, where I'm not joking. We joked around that we could lick the Walmart floor. Like it was that clean.
It was super clean there.
It was just so much cleaner that I felt like, okay, like this is better. Just in terms of like how the shelves were stocked, or you know what I mean? Just overall, like the overall aura of walking around in plazas, in malls, in stores, I felt that.
Yeah, and to put into perspective, like before we started like this video, like I looked up Florida and I looked up Texas and see how big they are. It's like, I'm just guessing again, like I think it was like 265,000 square miles is Texas, and Florida is 65,000 square miles or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the population of Florida was like 21 or 22 million, and Texas is like 30 million. You know what I mean? So Texas has that much more space and, more people, but it has like way more space than people compared to Florida. So that could have been a reason at the same time.
So I think we
found it to be super clean. I guess that's the thing.
Like that's the bottom point.
Like even down to the highways and everything else like that. Everything was super clean.
Streets, homes, stores. Like I just felt overall in comparison to Florida, I found Dallas to be cleaner. I think in the other ways that exceeded my expectations, like the weather was just pleasant as well. Maybe it
wasn't bad at all.
Maybe going from here, I was just, oh man, it's just cold. But, overall, I just felt that it exceeded everything.
Every day now I wake up and I check the weather here and it's like 1 degree or -2 degrees here. Then I check Frisco, Texas, and that's like 12 degrees, 13 degrees. And I check Austin and that's like 18 degrees. And I'm like... Dude, man.
Florida is like 28 degrees.
Yeah, 28. Fort Myers, we check Fort Myers. That's like 27, 28 degrees. So, I mean, overall, that is a plus point. The weather is good.
And the food, honestly, like it may not look like it, but I love eating. I live to eat. And I just felt so happy with the amount of options that I had in Texas. Like over here, my comfort food is like Wendy's, and over there I felt like
we didn't have Wendy's there.
I didn't even think about Wendy's when I was there. I feel like there were just so many options to choose from.
Shake Shack was pretty good too.
Yeah, like we had that twice as well, late night mission, and again, like just I feel like in terms of options, in terms of what you saw, in terms of the community aspect, it did exceed our expectations.
Yeah, exceeded for sure. It exceeded. Like it's exceeded so much so that like we're still in deliberation of basically saying, hey, like how much, like I think there is going to be some type of involvement, I guess, and right now we're just trying to figure out what that level of involvement is going to be.
Yeah, and I think that's all one side, which is obviously a big factor in our lives, but the other aspect was obviously working. Like I mentioned before, we're not looking to retire, so a big part was to see, is there an opportunity to continue to grow business there as well? And we had great conversations, especially with one gentleman in a Remax office as well, and the way that he spoke about his agents and the production that they were doing or the opportunities that they were into. We felt very hopeful in that sense as well. So we had good conversations there, and it didn't feel like it was going to be, starting from scratch, but at the same time knowing that whatever we've done here, people are accomplishing there, and it's not going to be like too hard of a transition, I guess.
Yeah, it's doable. I guess that's the conversation that we had. It's doable. I think overall, this trip did answer some questions, and it gave a little bit more clarity of what it is. For sure, it may not be moving towards Texas, but it's more of a personal situation that we realize that we need to deal with. So we're putting, that motion in there of saying, hey, okay, like we know what we need to do even personally over here. Either way, whether, something happens in Texas or it doesn't happen in Texas. So we got a lot of clarity on how to actually move forward. And I think the best thing that came out of it is that it's actually a real viable option. I think we would feel comfortable. Like if we made a decision that says that, hey, our business here is at a certain level that I feel comfortable, because I would not abandon my business here.
Absolutely.
Because I've worked my ass off to build it for like 13 years. So I'm not going to abandon this, and I really like it. So if I got to a point of where we said, hey, this is good, we got a good team in place over here that can hold down the fort while we are establishing a business somewhere else, I think there wouldn't be anything else stopping us except the immigration hurdles that we've already
And I think on the other side as well, like in terms of what did it kind of, like you mentioned, it gave us clarity. I think the other thing it gave us clarity on is that there are still things that we could accomplish here that would give us the same sense of accomplishment that I think we felt there. For example, like lifestyle. I think we spent half of this conversation about lifestyle. So what can we do here to kind of achieve that same thing? And what would we need to eliminate, or what would we need to add? And what can we do personally in our lives to get that same feeling? So even if, moving out of the country is something that we decide, it's not going to be an option, I still think that Texas answered a few questions for us where we said, hey, we're going to take care of X, Y, and Z so that we can feel a little bit more comfortable in our own lives as
Either
well.
way, you got answers on how to move forward on things.
100%,
right? At
yes.
least take it to the next step, because we're not in a position right now where we're going to make a decision on yes or no.
Absolutely, we're not ready.
There's a lot. I guess what it did answer is that there's a lot in front of you right now that you got to kind of chunk down before you can get there. But that doesn't eliminate the connections, contacts, conversations that we had over there in terms of like, hey, can we start doing some type of investment in Texas?
Absolutely.
And we don't necessarily even need to move there, but there are a lot of opportunities that I saw, and I want to make another trip down there just to make sure that the numbers, everything lines up, everything is settled, and I'm not just doing it out of hype. But there's a lot of things that we can actually buy and get involved with over there that might be a little bit more fruitful than doing them over here. Like, were you going to buy a townhouse for like $400K? Fine, it's US, low $500K.
Sure, yeah.
Like that, you are going to be able to cash flow on day one. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's going to happen over here.
Yeah. And I think personally between you and I, and again, everyone needs different things in their lives. I think you and I genuinely do enjoy talking to new people, having conversations and stuff like that. So for us, I think just in terms of like exploring more parts of the US, not necessarily to, pick up our couch and our bags and go live somewhere, but just in general, like exploring more parts of the States and talking to more agents, talking to more people, and just kind of finding out what people's stories are. Because I think that's part of what kind of drives you and I as well.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of the next steps. We're going to continue to explore further. Want to see if there is any business opportunities in terms of maybe operating a business out of there or just investing out of there. And if there is an opportunity to invest there while living in Canada, I want to try to see if some of my clients and friends are interested in getting on that. So I want to learn that product well enough that I can actually be comfortable to invest my own money in there and at the same time know that it actually believe in it, that it has like a good return or a good value that I can strongly go and, pitch it to other people as well and feel confident that we're giving them the right decision. So we're going to end up spending more time in there to figure out what other opportunities can come from there.
Or just build a home away from home.
I think that's what's going to happen anyways, but that's for a different story.
This is me planting seeds in Hussein's head.
That's a different story. Well, you know what? I think we've chatted enough about our experience about Texas.
I'd like to know if someone out there has been to Texas, if they had the same experience that we did, or you're listening to this and going, we had the exact opposite. I don't
Absolutely. You know what? Like I'm always saying on the videos, like book a call with me, but hey, book a call with both of us. Like my calendar link is going to be below or somewhere on the screen there. But book an appointment. Like if you're thinking that, hey, I might want to go somewhere else, or I might want to invest somewhere else, or I've done it, I would love to hear from somebody. Like if you have lived in Toronto or Canada and moved to the US or move somewhere else and you're watching this, I would love to get on a quick Zoom call with you guys and just chat about what it looked like to actually do that.
When we were in Florida, the people where we were a bunch of houses around us were all from somewhere else. Like I remember someone was from Toronto, someone was from Mississauga. So it was really neat to see so many people had been where we are right now and moved to Florida. And I'd like to see if there's other people that have moved to Texas.
Contact us. We're very curious to chat with y'all.
If you were from Toronto and went to Texas, I want to know more.
Let us know. All right, so I'm sure you guys got a ton of value from this podcast of us just downloading on what we thought about Texas. So like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe, because if you want awesome deals in Texas, I'm going to be your #1 Texas realtor, right?
Yeah.
So subscribe. All right, until next time, guys, remember one thing.
Get Kabani,
Get sold.